As part of our network, we work with reporters at think tanks in other states. Jim Scarantino at the Rio Grande Foundation says hello.
Yeah,
he wanted to pass along. He had a couple of very tough questions he wanted me to ask.
I'll bet they're going to be tough.
How much do you bench? And what's your time?
Well, I stopped weightlifting when I broke my back in 1999. I stopped weightlifting because of that broken back, and really started concentrating on getting a little faster running and bicycling. So when he says, "What's my time?" what would he be?
I'm not sure which race. What do you run?
Well, I'm an athlete. I am an athlete. I compete in mountain bike competitions. I have a home in Taos, New Mexico, so I regularly ski. And I have a goal to climb the highest mountain on each continent. So I'd like to think that I take part in my share of adventures.
Mm-hmm. We've got a tall mountain here, at least by Eastern standards. I know it's not the highest on the continent, but you're going to climb Mount Washington?
How tall is Mount Washington? I haven't done it, and yes, I would love to go to the top of Mount Washington. How tall is Mount Washington?
I'm not sure exactly how tall it is. I haven't seen the measurement. I knew in 4th grade when we had our civics class, but I've forgotten the exact height.
Well, I know that
by Western standards, it's pretty small.
But it's going to rise from sea level, so it's probably got some pretty good relief to it. But I was asking that question the other day. It's something I think I ought to know about New Hampshire.
So it's beautiful. The presidential range is beautiful.
Yeah.
Physical fitness, important to you. Mike Huckabee, who campaigned in New Hampshire recently, it was a big issue for him, but his approach to that seemed to be a proscriptive one for government to set dietary standards and require labeling requirements and that sort of thing.
Well, labeling restrictions are one thing. I would really shy away from what I think is the current direction of this country, which would be to actually legislate calorie intake. I would shy away from that kind of legislation. I think that we're getting to be a country of less freedoms, not more freedoms, and that we should move away from, again, labeling, good thing, but dietary requirements, I think that's right around the corner for actually legislated dietary requirements for Americans.
Banning trans fats in New York City.
Well, banning trans fats might also be a good idea, but a better idea would be just to offer people that choice, to be able to, to speak with their wallets rather than have this mandated.
One issue you've been outspoken on, it's a lightning rod, is drug legalization. It's a controversial issue, so people like talking about it. Where do you see that on your priority list? For all the things you'd like to see changed with how our government operates, where do you think that issue ranks?
I'll tell you what, I think it's one of the biggest issues in this country when you consider that half of what we spend on law enforcement, half of what we spend in the courts, and half of what we spend in the prisons is drug-related. Outside of the fact that we are arresting 1.8 million people a year in this country, all the resources that go into an issue that really is having no effect. People continue to use drugs, and by no means do I condone recreational use of drugs, whether that be marijuana or any other drugs. I think that marijuana should be legal. I think that we should adopt harm reduction strategies regarding all the other drugs. And when I say harm reduction strategies, I mean reducing death, disease, crime, and corruption. But why we can't make the same correlation between marijuana, smoking marijuana, and drinking alcohol, I really don't understand. I personally haven't had a drink of alcohol in 22 years. It's the best decision that I ever made in my entire life. Would the country be better off if nobody had a drink? Yeah, but we tried it. Again, I don't see why we can't make that same correlation with marijuana. Look, not the best choice in the world to smoke marijuana, but smoke marijuana confines of your own home, doing no harm to anyone arguably other than yourself. Should that be legal? Yes. Should you go to jail for that? No.
Yesterday, the governor here in New Hampshire, you were in town, unveiled a new jobs program to try to get lower the unemployment rate, get people back to work. Federally, we've had the stimulus package, talk of a second stimulus package, or third or fourth, depending on how you count them. What should the government be doing to try to get the economy back on track?
Well, I've always really disdained any politician that says I'm going to create jobs, or that the government has created jobs. The government doesn't provide jobs. Private enterprise creates jobs, and they do that in an environment. The government might provide this whole notion of equality in lowering taxes for everyone, not just those that are politically connected. So that's what government can do. Government can create the best possible business environment and can create confidence in that environment by doing so, and thus end up with the private sector hiring more people.
People have become frustrated, some would say angry, and that resulted in a big turnout. Anger at Republicans in 2006 and 2008. Some would say anger at Democrats in 2009 and 2010 in the special elections. How can people act on that frustration and get a government that they think better reflects their values?
Well, just on the basis of what you just pointed out, which I would agree with, I think Republicans have gone back to their core, which is stop the spending, lower taxes or no new taxes, and Democrats may just now be getting that message for the first time. So the messages are being sent loud and clear, and that is, if you're in office, you're going to be out of office if you don't get a big dose of common sense in a hurry. So stop the spending, certainly no new taxes. And right now, I think everybody is extremely frustrated and extremely angry over the deficit, over the printing of money that hands our nation to future generations hands over a bankrupt nation to future generations.
You've been to a number of tea parties over the last year.
Been to a few.
There seems to be a lot of talk about both parties having failed. The Republican Party can no longer credibly make a case for small government. Do you think there's an opportunity for a third party? Do you think it's a good idea?
I choose to work within the Republican Party to get the Republican Party back to its roots. I would hope that maybe those individuals looking at creating a third party or third party movement might look to the existing structure of two parties and work within one of those two parties. I would argue that the Republicans come closer to that than the Democrats.